if you give me a chance to make $100 million game, or you give me $100 million budget, you know what I'm going to do with that? As you've seen over the last week, it has been very tumultuous when it comes to, we've seen closings from the start of 2024 all the way through, and Xbox shuttered 4 companies this past week, which was pretty tough to see, but it is a response to the bad business that Xbox has had and the decisions that they made. Well, the Xbox president, Sarah Bond, was on Bloomberg for an interview the other day and was asked about why Tango Gameworks, which is the developer for Hi-Fi Rush, was shut down. And it was really interesting to hear what she had to say. So let's go listen to what she had to say. Mel, have you seen this clip before?
I've seen it circulating, but I didn't watch it yet.
Okay, good. I'm looking forward to seeing your reaction to this. Here we go. Let's see what Sarah Bond has to say.
Both to Xbox gamers and to employees is that, one of the shuttered studios in particular just created a hit game, did really well on Game Pass and in terms of engagement, and won a ton of awards. Shouldn't succeeding in that way ensure the future of a studio?
Okay. That's a question that's been asked a lot over the last few days. Like, you got a hit game. It's critically acclaimed. It won a lot of awards. It did well on Game Pass, but you still shut down the company. But let's see what she has to say. So here we go.
One of the things I really love about the games industry is it's a creative art form. And it means that the situation and what success is for each game and studio is also really unique. Like, there's no one size fits all to it for us. And so we look at each studio, each game team, and we look at a whole variety of factors when we're faced with sort of making decisions and trade-offs like that. But it all comes back to our long-term commitment to the games we create, the devices we build, the services, and ensuring that we're setting ourselves up to be able to deliver on those promises.
Wow. That was really something. Shouldn't the metrics they look at be, hey, did this generate profit? And do people like it? Which was yes and yes. Wouldn't that be the more important things to look at?
So keeping in mind that this is the president of Xbox, and she just gave about a minute-long response that was, in my estimation, I think anybody who's heard that, was a bunch of word salad nonsense.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't answer it at all. And as our buddy Destin from IGN says, while Bond probably isn't the one to answer this question, the response was word salad. 100%. And what's funny is, as this was pointed out, says you are not ready for the shot at 49 seconds. If you pay attention to what she's talking about here, let's look at what happens at 49 seconds. If you're not paying attention, it gets glossed over. Okay, so here's the time code. We're at 28 seconds. Pay attention here.
The situation and what success is for each game and studio is also really unique. Like, there's no one size fits all to it for us. And so we look at each studio, each game team, and we look at a whole variety of factors when
okay, so she's like, we look at all these factors, blah, 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 blah. Here we go.
We're faced with sort of making decisions and trade-offs.
So the cut had Microsoft Xbox year over year and the data associated with it, which is, it's just like kind of a funny cut to see, their decision making. So big ups on the producer for making that cut right there. Funny stuff. With that said, there's more to this interview. That's the clip that's going around. Mm-hmm. And I went back and I watched this interview before the show today to kind of see what was being said. And I think that the first couple minutes of this, I think, really tells a big story about the video game industry right now. It says a lot about where we're at and where Xbox is heading. So I'd like to watch just the first couple minutes of this with you guys, and tell me if you guys pick up a theme as we go along here.
Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today. So I want to start talking about the industry in general. You and Microsoft Games CEO Phil Spencer have been raising kind of the alarm that the video game industry is just not growing, and there's a real need to figure out how to reverse that. What's causing the issue, and how does Xbox turn it around?
Okay. The video game industry is not growing. How will you fix that? Okay. What are you going to do to fix and get back to growth?
Yeah, the last year or so in video games, largely the industry's been flat. And even in 2023, we saw just some tremendous releases, tremendously groundbreaking games, but still the growth didn't follow all of that.
So how do you solve it? How do you solve it? You've made great games. So here it comes.
And a lot of that's related to our need to bring new players in, make gaming more accessible. But
there it is, right there. we got to bring in new players, make it more accessible. And
let's cater to the non-gamers like they
right.
keep doing. And here's one thing I keep saying is, can we stop having these games with 100, 200, $300 million budgets? Can we just let video games be video games and stop trying to have all these bells and whistles, all this super expensive mocap and these very expensive cutscenes, and to have everything just mostly centered and focused around that? Because that's not appealing to most actual gamers. Look at something like the Tomb Raider remasters that just came out not long ago. Those have small budgets. They have been performing extremely well. And so when people look at the data and see, oh, but the Tomb Raider trilogy that had $100 million budgets each, those sold more units, or they may have moved more units, but they barely struggled to break even. And then you have something like these remasters, which were far less expensive to make. They're fun games that are actual video games, and they are selling like hotcakes, generating way more profit.
Well, you bring up some really great points, Mel, and she actually goes into these massive bloated budgets here. So let's go to hear what she has to say as she goes into that. So once again, we're at let's make it more accessible. Okay, let's bring in new gamers. Continue.
All of that has been happening at the same time that the cost associated with making these beautiful AAA blockbuster games is going up, and the time it takes to make them is going up. And so much of our focus as Xbox is about how we do things to help the industry all up, while also ensuring that our brand, everything that we do is there through this moment of transition.
Related.
Once again, just a bunch of gobbledygook word nonsense here. I mean, you have to be at this level of corporate, like to be a president of a major corporation, a major brand inside of a major corporation, you have to be able to speak nonsense. There's so much like blah, 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 blah. I'll say this: you nailed this as far as the bloat, right? The video game industry right now has tremendous bloat.
Yep.
I have a solution, and this is going to sound really, really mean, really mean. They need to Elon Musk the video game industry.
I agree.
80% of the people in the video game industry should be fired.
Yep.
Probably. I'm and not because they're not good at their job, right? Because there's just too much. I think that the reason why you have $100, $2 million, $300 million budgets, which will continue to expand, by the way, are because your teams are so large.
Yep.
They're so massive. And we've talked about this many, many times. If you give me a chance to make a $100 million game, or you give me a $100 million budget, you know what I'm going to do with that? I'm not making one game. I'm making 20 games. I'm making $25 million games. And they're going to be fucking awesome with small teams that allow them to be creative and go crazy. And that's the big issue, is that these companies, going back to IPs, they have put their flag in the ground. They say, this is what we're going to build around. And then they get so laser focused on that.
Yep. Yeah, and when you have these gigantic budgets like that, you have to move so many units to make a profit that you have to reach as many people as possible. And so then your actual core gamers aren't getting what they want, because what you've done is you've taken something intricate like chess, let's say games that have substance like comparing to like board games, for example, chess or Risk or something like that, and you're just, oh, we need to make everybody like this, so we're making Uno. And it's like, okay, a lot of people like Uno, but you're missing out on something so much deeper. And that's how it feels like being a gamer, where it's like we used to have games that were equivalent to like Risk or something like that. Very intense, very dynamic. But now so many mainstream games are just beautiful looking Uno games.
You know, Darth Vader came in and says Elon Musk already destroyed Twitter. Has he destroyed Twitter, or has he made it a product that you don't necessarily like, right?
I mean, there is more bots now than there ever was before.
That's fine.
The bots are ridiculous, but
this is
other
true.
than that, I do
There's
like
pros and
Twitter
cons.
better.
Right. Now, with that said, though, you can't argue with me that Twitter still doesn't run efficiently, right? It still feels the same, whether it's bots or not, and they let go of that 80%. And I think that, let's say it's just 50%, right? If you were to go down, and we've seen a tremendous cut. 10,000 people have lost their job in the video game industry in 2024. That's incredibly sad. But it may be necessary. It may be necessary. And I'm not up for like shuttering entire studios. I think that's a bad decision. But maybe they just get rid of the bloat instead of entire studios. You know what I mean? So it's amazing. And someone's going to have to come in and do that. Someone's going to have to be the bad guy. And that's, you kind of got to burn it to the ground, because these $102 million budgets for these games, guess what? In a decade from now, they're going to be $400-500 million budgets.
Yep.
It's going to be that much harder to do. And if a studio comes in with any sort of budget and attacks games from a efficiency standpoint and says, hey, we're going to spend $5 million on 20 games over the next 3 years and release just really great smaller games. And it's crazy to think like $5 million is a smaller game,
Right.
But it is in today's industry. And think about how much could be done, with a team of 15, like a 15-person team, really small, compact, working off their creativity, not answering to some sort of corporate overlord who's telling them what they should and shouldn't do, and let people be themselves when it comes to making these games. That's exciting to me. That's really exciting. So.
And instead of having to do these interviews with all this word salad and PR speak to try to make things look good, the way that they could justify some of these approaches that you've suggested, for example, would be, hey, it's sad to see people go. We don't want people to be out of jobs, but we have to put our focus on the gamers now, core gamers. And in order to do that, we can't reach absolutely every person. We can't appeal to absolutely everyone in the mainstream. We want to put our focus on the actual gamers again. I think that would make some waves and be a positive thing for people who are actually going to want to buy your products.
It is a mess that I do not think that Sarah Bond at Microsoft and Xbox is capable of cleaning up. And but hey, she's a black woman.
They got the DEI points.
Her, let's go. Colt Eastwood put it really great when it comes to the response. He said this should have been her response to that question. Says, we're trying to build up a strong gaming platform, and our hearts go out to the people that lost their jobs creating games for our fans. The industry is in a difficult situation, and we at Xbox need to do better. That should have been a response. That's it.
A lot better.
Instead of gobbledygook. Blah, 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 blah.